G'day folks, welcome to this introduction and overview of Barbarossa, Army Group North 1941. This is the full campaign. I think it's scenario 5. It's a big one. It runs for 47 turns from the 22nd of June through up until the 23rd of September 1941. So 47 turns. We start, or the Germans start, along the German border down here. It runs off the table, so I've run out of room, so I've printed off some extra maps, and they're below my table down here. It doesn't go for too long, about another 4 inches south of this line here, and they'll make their way onto the main map here. There's what have we got here? We've got map A on the left, map B. Map C kind of takes up this area down here in the south. Then we have map L, the Leningrad map, up here, and sort of a map W connecting it all in here. The Army Group border runs along here. You can see this black and yellow dotted line along here. So this is a sort of southern boundary of the drive. But critically, of course, the line of the drive will be following those rail lines towards Leningrad and the primary roads towards Leningrad. And there's not a lot of these. So I'm going to zoom in and show you sort of plans for this this German offensive. I'll point out, just while we had this broad scope here, here's Leningrad all the way up here in the north, the very northern edge of this map. I've got Riga out here on the coast, Pskov here. I will point out Novgorod here, and I think it's Luga, this town here, which I'll zoom in on just in a moment. But of course, just highlighting, I guess, the broader terrain features, a lot of open terrain, facilitating this drive along this road. This is, of course, the Dvina River, otherwise known as the Daugava River. I'll talk about that in just a moment, because it's kind of the first objective for the Germans. Then they need to drive up to here, Pskov, the key link here, and then Luga, Novgorod, Leningrad. But I'll zoom in and show you some sort of detail in these areas. Open terrain, very heavily wooded terrain, and lines of Russian fortifications around Leningrad. Let's zoom in and see this in more detail. So here are the German starting positions. You can see here the northern end of the line, and then they go off the map just a little bit. This is the sort of hastily printed off maps that I made just to fill in that initial starting position. They'll be pushing almost immediately up to the northeast. Now, a lot of open terrain here, hoping to capture, well, hoping to, I guess, destroy and push past these Russian defences whilst they're arguably not well organised. There's a lot of isolated units close to the front down here. We want to pick them off, eliminate that threat on the front. And then I'm going to zoom in on Daugavpils, this very important city across the Daugava or Dvina River, depending on what language you want to put it in. There aren't many crossings of this river. You've got Riga up in the north. There are some crossings here at Jekalopils, and of course the critical crossings here at Daugavpils. This one's important because it's on that main road and it's on the rail line. So capturing this city is going to be extremely important for the Germans. This could help, but notice there's a rail line there, but there's no main road, and there's a lot of wooded terrain out in front of it. So it'll be slow going through here to get to the town, and then once they get to it and capture it, it'll be slow going beyond it. If they can capture Daugavpils, it will facilitate their drive, because beyond here, it's clear terrain, it's a primary road up towards Pskov in the north, which I'll cover in just a moment. This is a pretty narrow, compared to Army Group South, which I've just played through. This is the width of the front. This is the Gulf of Riga. And this is, you can see it just in the bottom right here, this is the army boundary. So we're operating, I can probably fit it in, yeah, from here to here. The width of this camera is the width of this front along the Davina River. So Germans absolutely need to smash through and get here before the Russians can. Historically, they did this very quickly. There was a lot of sort of commando operation, subterfuge. I was reading a story about some German commandos using Russian trucks to sneak through and capture bridges and all this kind of stuff. But they did that pretty quickly. And then by mid-July, they were driving through to the north. Now, of course, this is Army Group North under von Lieb. He's got the 16th Army and the 18th Army. But the key driving force here is Panzer Group 4, with Corps under Reinhardt and von Manstein. Historically, they smashed through this clear terrain, drove along this road. The biggest threat to the Germans throughout July and August 1941 was their flanks. This was a very narrow drive, infantry pushing up on their flanks, and they were ordered numerous times to basically stop, slow down, and in some cases pull their panzer divisions back to help infantry. There's a famous story later in the campaign where von Manstein, when he was driving towards Novgorod, was ordered to pull some panzer divisions around to help some isolated infantry in Staraya Russa. So yes, they will. The German plan is to drive through this open terrain towards Pskov. Again, main road. There is not much out here in the east. If you look at that terrain, there's a lot of marsh and a lot of swamp and a lot of wooded terrain, and that is horrific. There's also not a lot of way to get supplies out there. There's a rail line which runs through Dagalpils up here. It branches off to the east, but this is the bottom of the map here. We don't want to push out there. It pushes up north, Pskov up here, main road. Convergence of these main roads is the main road coming from Riga out in the west, and from here it goes in two directions. One north towards Leningrad and one more east-northeast towards Novgorod and Staraya Russa. So this is where things get critical. And there's several sort of factors shaping the need for urgency. First of all, the Germans get 8 rail conversion points for use within Latvia, Lithuania, and Estonia on the first 10 turns. And they want to maximize that use to get the rail out of. This is a huge, huge, huge distance to cover. Just if you kind of, this is how far they're going from this front here all the way out to Leningrad. It's I think about twice the distance that we covered in Army Group South's campaign towards Kiev. And they've got to do it quickly. This open terrain has to be covered as rapidly as possible. They need maximum rail conversion such that when they get to Pskov, when they get to Novgorod, they have the supplies. So once they hit this region, this is where it gets tough, basically. If they're behind schedule here, if they aren't converting those rail lines, this is going to be a disaster once they get to this area. This is the city I'm talking about, the town I'm talking about, Luga. It was historically, I think, defining. Stubborn Russian defense here in, what was it, early August 1941, just held up Reinhardt's corps. Manstein was driving towards Novgorod, and von Lieb ordered them both to combine and push towards Luga and Leningrad in mid-August. So Luga eventually fell, but it was this Russian holding action at Luga which slowed down those two critical core, the whole, in fact, the 4th Panzer Group. For me, as the Germans, getting supplies up here, being able to facilitate that drive, and somehow grinding through Luga and this horrific terrain. There's one primary road. There's two if I can use Novgorod and swing around. For historical interest, I'll also point out, if you're interested, so this is Leningrad, and let's look at the rail lines. So this is, where is it? The rail line coming out. This is MGA, which is a critical rail station captured by von Manstein to isolate Leningrad. Leningrad itself has a big map, what do you call it, inset for the city. So once fighting gets to Leningrad, if it gets that far, there'll be a slow push hex by hex through those Russian city defenses. It's this campaign, it's not quite as it's basically a drive northeast towards Leningrad. There weren't sort of as many huge pockets of Russian units captured as we see in Army Group Centre or Army Group South. There aren't these sort of sweeping manoeuvres and changes of direction. It's basically a rapid drive. There were, throughout July and August, continual Russian counterattacks on the flanks. Russian armour in this area was very critical. A lot of KV-1s, KV-2s, causing a lot of damage to the Axis. So it's going to be very interesting to see how this all plays out. Every stage of this offensive, this is going to be a long campaign, and yeah, every bit of it is going to be critical for the Germans. They cannot falter at any step. They need to clear out the Russians quickly from these front line defenses. They need to rush across here. They need to capture these bridges, and I don't know how they're going to do this. The Russians know this is important, and they want to defend this. So the Germans will probably end up having to force a river crossing somewhere else and then swinging around. They may end up going through, sending sort of the bulk of their forces around Chikalopolis, and we'll see what happens. And then once they get beyond there, again, it's a critical, important drive towards Pskov. Clearing that rail line, advancing that railhead is going to be critical. And then getting to Leningrad as quickly as possible. Now, after playing Army Group South, I've got a few things in my mind. There's a few I'm very confident in the kind of improved thinking I have around Russian defences. I feel more confident that, given the opportunity, the Russians can defend. The Germans just don't want to give them that opportunity to rally their headquarters, to develop a reserve. I never used air transport, and I was kind of rereading the rules for air transport, and I'm mindful that the Germans can basically air transport MSUs close to the front. And this is another way that they can get supply out to their units that are really advancing. So that's basically what we'll see here. We'll see the 4th Panzer Group, these two Panzer Corps under Reinhardt and von Manstein, drive along this road and probably outpace the infantry and outpace their supplies. So I'm mindful of my ability to air transport supplies to those divisions. We'll also see more ZAP units in this title. They have the ability to, they're quite flexible units, to kind of rebuild, replace Russian units on the fly quite quickly in place. And we can do militia conversion into ZAP units as well. And so I might, I'll test that out as we get closer. What else? There's a few little rules that I played wrong. NKVD builds have a 7-turn delay. So when you rebuild an NKVD unit, it's placed 7 turns ahead on the track. And I wasn't doing that, which was an advantage to the Russians in Army Group South. They still lost So I'll be mindful of that as well. And we may see more Soviet garrisons being placed in hexes. When you rebuild Soviet units, they can be placed as sort of local garrisons in hexes. They have a garrison marker placed on them, but it enables them to be placed kind of further to the front, and that may be helpful to the Russians, particularly in this fighting along the Dvina and maybe beyond. So I can quickly rush a garrison unit into Daugavpils. I'm probably butchering the pronunciation of this, but yeah, sorry. You may notice all off in the background, we have all these Russian units in what's it called? Moon-sunned sea islands, and around the coast there. There are a lot of Russian garrison units in those areas, and a lot of them are restricted by those garrison rules. So I don't really know what's going to happen there. Yeah, like around Tallinn, a lot of Russian units, and yeah, there are certainly VPs there up for grabs, but I haven't even factored it into kind of my planning. I think there has to be something like, it's like the infantry will take care of that. These that 4th Panzer Group wants to drive along this road. In terms of Riga and how Riga factors into these plans, it doesn't. I don't. Again, I think that's something for the infantry to take care of. I don't want to push along this road. I want to focus on a rapid crossing of the Dvina. I want to keep my panzer divisions together along this road, punching along this railhead. So basically, I have to sort of drive north a little bit, but this will be basically, if I look at the front, there's certainly the primary road, but also this rail line, and they need to advance in parallel. So this will be sort of the width of the advance. This is where I think the Germans are going to want to be pushing and driving. That kind of width. So it's not a huge detour to head up to Jikolov Hills. It played an important role historically, of course. But I don't want to go further north. I don't want to be sending those panzer divisions to Riga, because they would just get bogged down here. Yeah, they want to cross that Dvina and keep moving. Terrain is going to play a key role. Once those divisions hit wooded terrain, it's going to slow down. This isn't so much of an issue. There's a corridor through here, but there are some great places for the Russians to stall. South of Pskov here, around Luga, and then anywhere south of Leningrad up in the north. It's going to be a fascinating campaign and a real test of Russian ability to defend, their ability to rebuild strong points. They will need to use those engineering points, those strong points, to form critical lines, just to slow the Axis down, to slow those panzer divisions down. And the panzer divisions are really going to be challenged now. Now that I kind of have learned mistakes as the Russians, it won't be as easy as Army Group South. They've learnt a lot. They've certainly learnt the value of keeping those panzer divisions together. They've learnt the value of advancing that railhead, of maximising rail capacity and rail conversion, and of driving along those roads. It's going to be a test of whether or not I implement these German lessons more effectively than whether or not I implement the Russian lessons on defence. That's one of the things I like about playing these games solo, is I'm learning both sides simultaneously. So I'm not playing a superior opponent. It's not like I'm sitting down and my opponent has played 20 games and he's far better than me and it's no challenge. I've learnt lessons as the Russians, I've learnt lessons as the Germans, and I have equal experience as both. So yeah, I'm playing against an equally skilled opponent on both sides. Whew. There are, incidentally, quite a lot of Russian reinforcements. I've got the Russian reinforcements up there. These two sheets, these are German reinforcements. There are also, these are the on Leningrad insert map setup. I haven't set them up because the map doesn't fit. And then there are the variable Russian reinforcement pool groups on that sheet up in the right there that I can also purchase. Incidentally, there are a couple of things of interest. Unless I've missed something, there's no German air from the start. I'm a little bit concerned about that. I guess historically, they were focusing on counter-air, and they've interdicted a couple of headquarters. There's one here and there's one further to the south. So they were focusing on that. But I don't get air units until at least turn 3, and I get a big pull. I'll take you over and show you the German reinforcement sheet. A big pull on turn 23. So there's these guys on turn 3, and then turn 4 in the north, and that huge flock of birds on game turn 23. Alright. There the Russians. They get some air units on turn 6. So there's always going to be it looks like a parity of air power. Although, of course, the Bf-109s are far stronger than anything the Russians can put up. Okay. So, folks, I will be starting this pretty soon, and I'll be putting up some reports. Session reports the same as last time. I'm feeling more confident about the rules as well, so I may do some live playthroughs if that's of interest. As always, thanks for watching, and take care.